Regarding racism in the Conservative Party, does Boris want banks on your way not apply to him and Matthew Hinton?
Were you here? What are we to make of?
Jeremy Corbyn's repeated refusal on the Andrew Neil show to apologize for the anti-Semitism he has presided over, right?
Well, I'm not gonna. Sorry, Lena. I'm gonna start with you on that. Yeah, I watched that interview. Corbyn didn't look good. I don't quite understand why he didn't apologize in that. He's apologized before, and I recognize that there are two different kinds of apology. That's the kind where you say you're sorry, you were regretful, and you're sorry, it's your fault. And I think he's very reluctant to make the latter kind of apology.
And what about the first question regarding racism, the Conservative Party?
I have found evidence of anti-Semitism in the Labour Party more persuasive than that. It's more of an institutional problem than I find the sporadic evidence in the Tory party. If nothing else, the Chancellor of the Exchequer is Muslim, and that's the second most powerful position, well, Muslim background.
Minister Syed Ozi has said a powerful diversity in the Conservative Party, dossier after dossier, dozens and dozens of cases being presented with the most vile evidence of racism within the party, the Conservative Party at every level, from Member of Parliament, all the way down to ordinary activities. So she certainly feels that a bit of over to Caroline.
Well, I think that racism and all its forms is obviously vile and unacceptable, and we need to do everything we possibly can to stamp it out. I think the idea that because there's a minister from a particular faith, a minister in this case who is Muslim somehow, that lets off the rest of the party from being able to live up to standard. And we know there has been an uprise in racism around the times when Boris Johnson does refer to Muslim women wearing burqas as letterboxes and so forth. But that is evidence-based, so it goes back in a sense to the question.
Just an image, he was being light-hearted.
Hang on, let's ask the woman in the audience.
You want to talk about that? What about the rhetoric you use about people, blue boxes, when I walk down the street and I get told after that to go back to my responsibility?
That was an image pain. You're now spreading hate, like saying that what is wrong with saying it's a letterbox, you're spreading hate. Senate Slur, did you read the original offense? Did you read the original piece? He was standing up for Muslim women's right to wear whatever they want.
Also, new includes the decal, and they take these consequences to what you see. I'm talking about half of many Muslims I get told to go back to men. I get physically assaulted, just walk up to the gym in a broad daylight. There's consequences to say something like that.
I'm very sorry to hear about your experience, but I can't see how many while you can blame Boris Johnson. Well, Brandon.
This is clearly the money would be Prime Minister. I mean, it is not the first time this to come up on the program. I have to say, well, he said 1 week, 1 baht, and you're out. Doesn't that not apply to himself? That was
a question. Well, my bouncing how is how our parties act. I have to say, when and whenever the party has found somebody in our party who has acted in a way that is abusive or wrong about any religions or any race or somebody experience. Bullying, some of you know, my descendants came from the Jewish So anything like it completely unexpected, not ever kind of abuse you are talking about. What you say you don't understand, I do understand. I have to say I do believe there is a repercussions to what we say. We as a politicians have to think about the language we use. But I would also defend the Prime Minister the right and the politicians right. I actually use the language to make a point, and that there's a point to say I was finished in the articles you wrote, which I don't think for the way you acted. You have read, it's worth reading. It was an article argue for people having the right to wear what they want and not to be forced into wearing something they are, or not wearing something in, which actually is very, very important point. And I think it's right for us, for liberal society people, should have the right to wear one, but it's a conservative things. This is one of these I say I am very proud of in a exit party. If and people talk about dossiers, I have got to say my experience. There is an often a big difference between the reality and what people say, because somebody online said Simon doesn't mean they have a member of our party, but actually we have a deal with cases. If we find somebody who act in a way that is inappropriate, whatever type of inappropriate behavior that has been dealt with, is being dealt with swiftly, not these tons and tons of cases swiftly, not these tons of cases sitting around for something, sometimes like Ken Livingstone, years not being dealt with by the Labour Party. This is quite different situations, and I think abhorrent to see what we saw on Anthony on the right night. Okay.
Well, that was the other question. So why did Jeremy Corbyn, he has apologized before in a meaningful way? Why was he not able to do that on Andrew?
I'm glad you acknowledge that, because he has acknowledged and apologized on several occasions for the hurt caused to members of the Jewish community.
So this is why it's got awkward moment, wasn't it? Why did he just not say I'm sorry? He has said he is sorry.
He's sorry that this happened.
Why didn't he say no?
We are not use visual words about it, you know. When you hear people say, I'm sorry for any offense that may have been made that clear. So why didn't you say the question is why? Well, because he is trying to do is having made those apologies, publish them, and he repeated them the following day. By the way, is to get on the proactive measures that we want to take as an incoming government to give those protections to the Jewish community.
You can still say sorry and then talk about that as well.
We're saying sorry and we've been made that apology, but I think it is very, very important to set out exactly the steps that we taking in terms of the protections of other to places of worship, of education, and to address the whole issues, a whole gamut of anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, or the false arose in our national curriculum, to ensure that we start building that capacity. But quite frankly, for this denial over the terrible choice of words about letterboxes, I'm not bothered about the articles. It is the choice of the words that have been used, and as direct result of those offensive comments, you know, hate crimes increase people who were assaulted me because of the words chosen by the Prime Minister. And we now see this slew of articles in the spectacles that been on earth about his rampant misogyny and his abuse of women. It is an absolute outrage, and I don't see the Senate taking place.
Oh, sorry. I think there was a poll out this week that said a third of voters consider both Jeremy Corbyn and Boris Johnson to be racist. A third that is it's just appalling. The two people who are most one of whom is most likely to be the next prime minister. A third of voters think they were racist, so I think we have a real problem, and I think there is a real problem on both sides. I think in the Labour Party, it is an institu- institutionalist problem that has come in the last few years with the arrival of Momentum and Jeremy Corbyn. Like he is have been hounded out of the party, and yes, there is a talk of looking into things, but there is, I think, when you have the chief rabbi speaking out as you did this week, it suggests there is a very serious problem now. There is also a problem in the Tory party and the choice of words by Boris Johnson on the subject, and indeed on others, is appalling, and there is no way of going around. It's a stain on the Tory party, and during the leadership campaign, Boris Johnson said there will be an independent inquiry into Islamophobia in the party, and to my knowledge, that has not happened. So I think in both cases, the parties are falling really radically short of where they should. No, it's just a minute.
Well, there's going to be an inquiry, but it's not independent and it's in okay, but it's into all forms of prejudice, not just into Islamophobia as was promised on television, live television. I think yes, the woman there.
Jeremy Corbyn made an apology back in 2008, and it just seems to me that it doesn't matter how many times he apologizes, it's never enough what happens to forgiveness. Why does somebody have to keep on saying the same thing over and over again and not being believed? There are two black women that sit regularly on the front benches with Jeremy Corbyn if there was a rampant racism in the Labour Party. I'm sure they would have known about it and identified it. I didn't believe that he gets a fair deal from the media or the press in terms of wanting to protect their position and their minions that they park off overseas in offshore accounts, and they see him as a threat to that position, and that's what this is all about. And quite frankly, a continual pummeling of Jeremy Corbyn for no good reason. And it just seems to me that people just don't understand or recognize a decent person when they see one anymore. They want people to keep on being nasty and spiteful, all evil all the time, and it's not right. Well, I can see people agreeing with you. Certainly, the sentiment people agree on some of it and shaking their head at some of it as well.
Okay, everyone, for the wonderful discussion. So we will end our meeting here. Thank you so much.